Welcome to another Lightroom Classic tutorial in the series The Map to Lightroom, the Michael approved process. This video will discuss the HSL panel. HSL. HSL stands for Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. It's all about color. It's the tone of the color, what color range it is. That's the hue. The S is saturation, which is the richness of the color, and then the L is luminance, which is the brightness of colors. And colors have a really important psychological impact on our photos. They carry a lot of emotional content. They help us see things and not see other things. They draw our attention. So colors are a really important way to bring the viewer to the mood or the place you want them to be emotionally, as well as to direct their attention visually. So we have lots of ingredients here that we can play with in the HSL panel. So let's get started. So the HSL panel is in the Develop module of Lightroom Classic, and it's the third panel down on the right-hand side. The basic panel is the first, and then we get to Tone Curve, which we're not going to do today. We will do that in a separate video. And then the next one down is called HSL/Color. So go ahead and click on the triangle to show the controls available in HSL/Color. And here you'll see what's available to you. There's about four ways to interact with this. If you're in HSL, you will see Hue, Saturation, Luminance, and then in here in the middle section, you'll see the Hue panel. 8 colors here: red, orange, yellow, green, aqua blue, purple, and magenta that are available to you. If you click on the Color tab instead, now you'll see by default one single color. And it's Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. So you can change all 3 of these controls for one color. If you click on All over here on the right of this Color tab, you can see all 8 colors and their Hue, Saturation, Luminance controls. I tend to work from this HSL view where I'm just seeing all 8 colors and their hue, all 8 colors and their saturation, all 8 colors and their luminance, because frankly, that's just how I learned it. So I'm more comfortable working this way, but there's lots of different ways to work. Also, when you're in any of these HSL modes, if you click the word at the top again, click it once. Oh, maybe not. Oh no, it's up here. I'm sorry. If you click up here to click Hue again, if I click it twice, it'll show me the hue, saturation, and luminance. And then the 8 colors, 8 colors under each of those 3. So again, different ways to interact with this. I prefer a single view. That's my thing. All right, so let's start with this photo. Colorful cars, some 57 Chevys. Let me just show you how this panel works. So the H for hue is the range of the color. So in each of those color ranges, when they're in the middle, that's their baseline. And then you can go take that color and move it to its neighbor. So red would go towards pink on the left, orange on the right. You can go all the way or just part of the way. So I can move a color, nudge a color to its neighbor. Now I can't take a color and move it out of its neighborhood, if you will. So I can't take red and make it blue because it's not next to it. So it's a little tricky at first to understand how this works, but that's the limit. So let's start with the red slider. I'm going to take the red and go all the way to the left. So that makes all the elements in the photo. This is global, so it's affecting everything in the photo that's red. I took it towards the left, which is towards pink. So you saw this red car over here become very pink. If I go all the way to the right, now that red car and anything else that's red has red in it becomes more orange. So I nudged it to the neighbor orange. You can go all the way to either end, or maybe just a smaller change to take that red car and make it a little more orange, or take it over this way, make it a little more pink. So you can do this for preference, for correction, also to direct attention. So we'll just take the red and go, let's just go towards pink, all the way to pink. Very, very bright and vibrant here. Orange, I'm going to move that around and see what happens. So if I go to the right Anything that has some orange in it now will have some more yellow. So not a lot is changing when I leave the red all the way over there. Let me do that again. So I'm going to reset my red slider to 0. And the way to do that, there's two ways. You can double click the control slider or double click the word over here. So let's move orange now and see what happens. If I go to the left, anything that's got some orange in it, it's going to become more red. So that car has some orange in it, that car on the far left. So it's now more red. There's a little bit of orange in some of those other colors, but mostly other cars, excuse me. But it's mostly in that one red car here that has some orange elements in it. That's why it's changing. There's no green in the photo. I'll just save that one. There is a little bit of aqua. This car right here is that kind of turquoise and aqua color. So if I go to the right, it becomes more blue. If I go to the left, that car becomes more green. So lots, again, you could do this creatively or to just change visually a little bit. Now, you may not think there's much blue in this photo or any blue, but oftentimes when you have reflection, shiny surfaces, and there's blue sky, the blue sky is in those shiny surfaces. So you'll see here on the chrome bumpers, we've got a lot of blue in here. So if I take the blue control and go to the right towards purple, now all those reflections will be very purple, and that doesn't look quite right. Same way if I go over here and take that blue and go towards purple, towards the aqua, now it's more green and turquoise. So that doesn't look quite right either. I'm going to take that back to 0, and we'll start over again. There's no purple in this photo, really, even though this looks like it's purple up here. We'll just prove that to you by moving it around. Nothing's really changing in the photo. So same with magenta. There's a little bit in the red car, but not very much. So there you go. Back to 0. So again, a reminder, this is on the whole photo. So any of these changes, when I'm changing any of these colors, I'm changing all of the items in the photo that have that color in it. So it's something to be aware of and pay a little bit of attention to. Let's do the saturation next. The S in HSL, so saturation is the richness of all the colors. On the left-hand side, we've taken all, if you go all the way to the left, all the color is gone. So it's basically just tones of gray. If you go to the right, the colors get much more rich, more like a neon sign, although these colors are already very, very rich, so not much more to go from there. So let's go to the left on the red, see what happens. And you'll see that that car is now mostly, we took all the red out. The red color is gone, so we left a little pink here, and also on these other cars as well. So the reason that this didn't become totally gray is because there's two colors, and this is pretty common. There's a primary, which is the red, and a secondary color, another neighbor, that also needs to move to change that the most. So in this case, it's going to be orange. So if I drag the orange all the way to the left, now I've pretty much taken all the color out of this one car, reduced it in all the other cars that have red and orange in it, and this one is now silver. So how do you find this out? How do you know this? Part of it's experience, and another way is just to see which colors are primary and secondary in a portion of your image that you want to change, will be to use this tool over here to the left of the word saturation. It also works in hue and luminance. This tool is called the targeted adjustment tool. So when you click on that, now your cursor changes to a plus sign with a bullseye up and down arrow. So wherever you click will sample underneath that. So you click it once, hold your mouse down and pull down, and that'll make things go to the left. You can see I'm taking the color out. It's completely gone. You saw the red move first because that's primary, and then the orange follows. See, the red is moving first as I'm pushing up, and the orange is following. So now those colors are getting super saturated. It was already quite saturated to begin with. If I keep pushing up, it'll eventually move both of them all the way to the right. So look at how rich these colors are now. So that looks a little fake, and that sometimes happens with saturation, but it's sometimes fun to play with. So I'm going to double click the word saturation. That'll reset both of those that I've moved, or any that I've moved, back to 0 to get me back to where I want to be. And last, I'll show you in here, this is a great one. I mentioned the sky is showing up in these chrome bumpers. So this blue is pulling your attention away because it's the only blue in the photo. So it's getting your attention. So I want to reduce that. So I'm going to click on the blue slider in saturation and go to the left. Take that color out. So I'm going to go to the left until it's just about all gone. And there we go. So now all the blue is gone from the bumper. So these colors on the car can stand out even more because it's not competing with the color down here. So that's saturation. I'm going to leave that there for now. Let's go to luminance. Luminance is the exposure of each of these 8 colors. So I can change that as well. I can change the brightness of the colors. Let's use our red car again. We'll stay with the targeted adjustment tool. I'm going to click right here on the car, this red car. I'm going to click and hold and pull down, and those colors will get darker. And it's changing most of the cars because there's red and orange, as both are moving here, in most of these cars. So if I go to the right, the colors will get more exposure to them, and that tends to wash out the colors. It makes it not as rich. So there, if we go all the way to the maximum brightness, it really changes the way, especially this car looks. It looks a little bit more like a pink car instead of that red car. So that's luminance. I'm going to reset that to 0 for the red and the orange, just to get us back where we started. I want to go here again on the bumpers. Remember, these were blue mostly in color from the reflected sky. So I'm going to take I want to increase the exposure on that. And that'll it'll make it just a little brighter and shinier on those bumpers. Let's move it quickly so you can see what's happening. Let's go all the way to plus 100 and then negative 100. And you'll see that gets darker and kind of hides that. That doesn't look good. But if we go brighter, I like how shiny that looks now. Makes the bumpers, the chrome, look even shinier, even though what is changing is the blue sky that was reflected. So that's a quick introduction to the HSL. We'll do some more sample photos here to show you some ways we can be corrective. But just to review again, the H is hue. That's the tone of the color, what color it is, what color crayon, if you will. I can shift that from its existing color to its neighbor. It affects all the colors in the photo that are that same color. Saturation is the richness, the intensity of a color, from no color at all of that, just tones of gray, to very rich and neon kind of looking colors. The luminance, the L, is the brightness, the exposure of that color range. So the red, orange, yellow, green, aqua, blue, purple, magenta, those colors I can change the richness of. Again, the targeted adjustment tool will let us drag the primary and secondary color together, both at the same time, to get a more dramatic change. So that's the quick overview. In a moment, I'm going to show you how to do some more corrective and changes using these controls, HSL, to help draw attention to different parts of the photos or to change the emotional content of the photo. All right, so here's another example of using HSL to help draw attention to a certain part of the photo and remove some distractions. So here's what I mean. In this photo of this big blue Chrysler Imperial, we've got some colors that are contrasting. So we've got yellow, orange, and a little bit of red. So we've got yellow and orange here, some red over here, and a little bit of red and orange in this reflection. That's my very bright camera strap I no longer use because of this photo. So those little bits of color, they draw your attention for just a moment, and that becomes a distraction. So I want to reduce that. I'm going to use HSL to help me do that. I'm not going to use hue for this part. I don't want to change their colors. I just want to make them less apparent in this image. So I'm going to start with saturation, so the richness of those colors. So I know it's going to be the red, that's that car on the left, and a little bit on my camera strap here, so the red car back here. Got some orange. I'm going to take that and reduce that saturation as well. and the yellow. I'm not taking the yellow and orange all the way to -100 because I don't want this to look like a special effect. I just wanted to knock those colors down so you don't really see it, but you've still got a little bit of it left up here. I'm going to leave the rest of the car alone. I could, well, let's see what happens. Let's do the car a little bit. We can change the exposure on the car. So I've got the targeted, the saturation on the car. So I've got the targeted adjustment tool, saturation. I'm going to pull it down. Let's see if, so that makes the car more silver. If you want to go towards silver, have a silver car. I'm going to push it up and make the colors even richer and more vibrant. That's a little much, so I'll maybe go right about there. Luminance, that'll be the last step in removing these distractions, and we'll also play around a little bit with it on the car. Let's start with the distractions. So that's the luminance of the red. I'm just watching. I'm not looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the color change. I'm making them darker. Things that are darker don't get as much attention usually. So I'm just darkening up a little bit the sign that's over here that's blurring out of focus, the red car, and the red and orange strap down here. On the car itself, I can make it a little brighter if I want by clicking with the targeted adjustment tool and making it really bright, or make it a little bit darker if I want to make those colors even richer. And part of the car is a little overexposed, so that helps a little bit with this bright reflection. So there we go. We changed the exposure on this distraction parts and the car itself. So it's a quick way to it still be pretty subtle. I don't want to make this look like a comic book. I don't want to make it look like special effects. I still want it to look like and feel like it did on that day. Color is an important way to draw attention. We're going to pay attention to different colors, so that's why I muted these. So that's how I used the HSL panel on this car. This photo was to draw attention to that big blue car. On this photo of the flower, what I want to do is both for attention, a little bit of distraction reduction, and I also want to use it to change the mood a little bit, to change the feeling. So the next photo I want to do is this flower. This flower I want to use to show you what we can do with HSL to, again, draw attention, to create better focus on the flower itself, as well as I want to change emotionally a little bit how this feels. I want to make it a little richer in color, maybe even a little more menacing feeling. So some of those colors that draw that kind of menacing feeling are reds and the oranges. I want to make them richer and more dramatic. So we'll start here. I'm going to shift some of these colors that are already orange. I'm going to switch I want to switch them a little bit, move them towards the reds, and let's do that starting with the hue slider. So I'm going to take reds and go a little towards pink, and orange a little towards red. We'll go quite a little ways just to get that pretty dramatic, and look at that already. It's quite a bit more orange and maybe a little scarier. The rest of the colors I'm going to leave alone. I don't really want to move those around and change their colors. I want the focus to be here. So one of the things I'm thinking of is this blue is a little bit of distraction because it's a contrasting and different color from everything else going on. And then the stalk that has a lot of yellow and green in it, I want to mute those both a little bit. So we'll do that starting in saturation. So I'm going to take the saturation of this blue, and I'm going to use my targeted adjustment tool just to make sure I'm moving things as I need to. So you'll see it's primarily moving blue, and then in secondary, purple's following up. So it's not even with blue at -100. That blue is saturation, -100 saturation. The blue is still there a little bit. It's still a distracting color, so I'm going to keep pulling down, and purple moves all the way towards -100, and then this becomes more matching in tone to the rest of the colors around, so it's less of a distraction. On the flower stalk, I'm going to click and hold and pull down. That's going to move yellow primarily and green just a little bit. I don't want to move too much green because I do want to keep the green that's in the background with this. Remember, we're changing all the yellow and green in the photo, so that takes care of that. Lastly here, luminance, the brightness. So I'm going to keep using targeted adjustment. So I'm going to click somewhere on this flower. I'm going to click on the orange stuff, the yellow orange, and push up a little bit, make that a little brighter. There we go. Right about, don't go too far. And then click here on this inner part that's got more purples and pinks, and do the same thing there. Just click and push and removing the orange and the reds. So now that's a bit brighter. Actually, that's now too bright. So let me come back up here and click and pull down. I'm just going to go over to the slider now, move that this way just a little bit. So we've taken that from kind of muted and more orange and yellows to more reds. Remove this distraction, darken this up a little bit. So now it's really quick and easy to see this flower more. It's got a little bit more menacing look to it, kind of like teeth or something. If you want to see what it looks like without the HSL changes, all the panels in Lightroom, except the basic panel, have this little switch on them. It's called a toggle switch that you can click, and that'll turn off the effects from that panel. So it'll hide the things we just did. It might take a moment on my slow computer. There we are. So we got lots of greens and tones in here, less of the reds and the pinks. So all those changes we did, added a bunch of reds and hid the blue and reduced the yellows in the photo. So here it comes in just a minute. 3, 2, 1. There it is. So those are the changes we made in this photo with HSL. Next photo I'd like to show you using the HSL panel to make changes is this photo taken in Oxford in the UK, in the United Kingdom. This is a pretty common thing that'll happen when you include the sky in your photo. When you make an exposure that's correct for your main subject, the sky will often become quite boring and dull. It's because it's too bright. The sky is very bright. We can see that over here in the histogram. So one way to address this in a simple and easy way, knowing what our software can do, is to use the HSL panel. And I'm going to jump right to luminance for this photo because I know the sky is blue. So I bet if I go to the blue slider in the luminance panel and go to the left to make the blues darker, all of a sudden there's my blue sky now. And it reflects also here in the window, so I can see it's blue. So wow, what a change already just with that one little bit of blue exposure change. I'm not quite done with this photo. I want to show you some of the things I also do in photos with color. Color is very personal and subjective. It's a matter of opinion, but it's also a matter of style and ways to make your photos feel more like yours, a little bit different than everybody else's. Lots of people do this on Instagram with filters and such. I do it just a little bit by moving my colors just a little bit one way or the other to just different tones. So here's what I mean by that. So I'm going to the hue panel now, and I'm taking my reds, and I go to about -15 to -20. Let's just go -15, sorry. And my orange and the yellow. So both of those, all three of those, I take to about -15. Just kind of eyeball it. The green, if I always do this, even if there's no green in here, but it's not going to do anything. Also about +10 to +12. So I'm moving that towards the aqua, toward the turquoise. The aqua, I move a little towards green. I know that seems weird, but it works. About -15, and the blue I also take to about -15. So what that does, anytime I have sky in my photo, instead of being a very blue sky, now it's got just a little bit of greens in it. So it's a little more like water, which I like. Also, my camera tends to have a little pinks and purples in the sky, which I don't like. So this kind of addresses that using the HSL panel. If I want to be more dramatic, I can go a little bit further. If I want to feel, if I'm in a mood to be more dramatic with that color shift in the sky, that's a little much. So I'll come back just a little bit. I'm just watching the sky. I'm not looking at the numbers. So there we go. I can also do saturation. If I want a little more richness in that sky, again with the blues, I would go to the plus side to get just a little more intensity in the sky, and that color change I made to make it just a little more turquoise. Luminance, let's go back there for just a moment. We can play with the building a little bit. I'm going to use the targeted adjustment tool. Let's see if we can make that building just a little more dramatic, and I'm going to try making it darker. So I clicked in one spot on the building, and I'm clicking and holding, and I'm pulling down. It's moving yellow primarily, but orange secondary. So you can see I can make the building very dark, which looks not good, or just a little darker, just a little more dramatic, imposing. Again, this is for emotion. This is for feeling the changes I'm making in the colors to get me to a different place. You're still looking at the same thing. It just hopefully feels a little different. And it feels more, if you look at a collection of my photos, it feels like one of my photos. So that's what I'm trying to do here with HSL. Both correct the sky because it was too bright, so I pulled the blues down so you could see the sky and separate it from the clouds. And then I moved the colors around a little bit to get to more of a color style that I like. So another way we can use HSL. All right, one more photo here with HSL showing some of the different things you can do. This sunset photo just down the road from where I live in Sammamish. Quite dramatic, but we're going to make it a little more dramatic. That's one of the fun things we can do with HSL is increase, decrease colors and change them, and change then for the emotional content, the feeling of the photo. I'm going to start, I'm on Luminance, so let's go ahead and start there. I do want to make this, there's a little bit of blue in the sky here, and I want to make that brighter. It's a little dark right now, so I'm just going to take the blue and drag it all the way to about plus 85, make it brighter. I could go to 100, it's not going to hurt anything. There we go. So just to brighten up the blues a little bit, get that going. I'm going to go to hue next. I'm not going to change the saturations right now. It's pretty saturated in color. But I am going to do what I mentioned in the last photo. I'm going to do the moves that I make to make photos nudge the colors just the direction I want to go. So again, it's the red, orange, yellow to about minus 15, the green towards plus 16, the aqua and blue to minus 15s or so. So it's little nudges. It makes this have a little more orange and red to it than the yellow. It just changes it. Again, I really like the feeling of these colors. In fact, I'm going to be a little more dramatic with the red and orange. I'm going to take them both. I'm just going to go, let's see, about minus, that's a little too much with the orange. So minus 30s, maybe instead of minus 15s. Kind of in that ballpark. Yeah, so get this color just a little more dramatic. Let's see on the blues what that does too. Yeah, shifting this, making it a little more mysterious up here with the aquas. It's also kind of looks like it's lightening it just a little bit. I don't know why, but hey, sometimes that's the way it goes. So that's a little too much. Now I got too much green in there. Let's back this off a little bit. Again, this is personal taste, what I'm doing right now. This is for mood, for feeling, to reflect and be consistent with the way I edit photos. Frankly, I just like the way it looks. It's maybe illogical. No one else may like it, but I do like it. And that's an important thing to consider as you're editing your photos. You're editing for yourself. You're making corrections and changes to get the photo to feel like your photo. That's an important and fun element in taking photos, is using Lightroom or any software to get them the final stretch to feel even more like your photos. We all make style choices very individually, so this is another way you get to do it with your photos, using HSL color changes for mood, for correction, to draw attention to a certain part of a photo and reduce attention on another part of a photo. There's lots we can do with HSL. So the neat thing about it is now we have all these different ingredients we can add to our color mix to be subtle, to be dramatic, and make all these changes in our photos to help them feel like we want the photo to feel to tell the story we want to tell. So again, we're thinking ahead, being intentional with our photos, both in the way we take the photos and now here in the way we edit the photos. So that's the HSL panel. I hope it's been helpful. Feel free to rewind and watch again as the parts you need, or if you do have questions, please feel free to leave them here in the comments or send me an email. I look forward to hearing from you. I hope, again, this is helpful. HSL is a wonderful way to really transform your photos and put the final, or not quite the final, there's more to come, but another layer of you into your photos. So until we meet again, I hope you continue using Lightroom and experimenting, and it's a big help to you in your photos.